Hello, and welcome to the new mid, where we are redefining midlife. Today, I am so excited to have Darcy Benincosa with us, and she is going to help us talk about how we pivot in midlife. So, welcome, Darcy.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh gosh, I'm thrilled to have you here. I've been waiting for months to have you, and I'm so excited it's finally happening. Can I ask you to tell our audience can you explain what you do?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I think at the heart of everything, I'm a storyteller and I help brands tell really compelling stories through words and images. So I started off as a destination wedding photographer after I left school teaching. I was a school teacher for a while, and I started my career in photography quite late. I was like 33, I think, and competing with a lot of 20-year-olds, and I really just put my head down, decided I was going to do this. And then as I've been doing that over the past decade, I really took my love for English, which in storytelling and literature, and my love for photos, and I realized I had a knack for helping businesses create really compelling, strong visual brands, and I teach them how to market those brands as well.
Wow,
So
that
I'm
sounds
a
so
brand and
exciting.
marketing strategist for entrepreneurs.
Well, that's awesome. So you mentioned that you were an English teacher, which is
Yes.
wonderful. Teachers are amazing. So what made you take the leap to go and start your own business, become a photographer full time?
Yeah, as I started to develop my mindset, thoughts become things, doing more personal inner work, sort of this whole evolution. To be honest, it kicked off with the movie The Secret, like way back in the day when that was a brand new thing. I remember one of my students actually brought me a copy and said, my mom thinks you should watch this because the parents loved me, the kids loved me. And as I watched it, I did not understand it at all. It was the first time I'd ever heard thoughts become things. And I think now that's such a part of our society that it seems weird that there wasn't a time when we were all talking about it. But as I started to do my personal work, I realized my dreams just expanded and I wanted to make more than 50,000 a year. And as a school teacher for over a decade, my income was really, really capped no matter how hard I worked. I was directing after school plays. I was coming in early to help kids with their work. I was working like 40, not 40, like 60-hour weeks and still making 50K. And I knew that my future was 50K forever. And I think as we expand, our ability and our desires expand too. So I finally got really brave and quit my day job, which was like the scariest thing I had done, and decided to give photography a go. And in 1 year, I went from making $16,000 in photography to $120,000 in photography, which was beyond my wildest expectation in all. So yeah, it worked. It worked. It usually works when we take a leap and trust our gut.
Wow, that is amazing. So what would you say were the top things that you did? What would you say put you apart to make that leap and go from $16,000 to $120,000? What makes a person successful, would you say?
You mean like in creating their own business,
Yes, in
do
creating
you
their own
think?
business.
Do a lot of your listeners, are they creating something new, going into some new venture? For me, I think it was laying the groundwork before I left. So 2 years before I left teaching, I started attending marketing conferences and I was taking photos my whole life. Like it had always just been a hobby and a passion. I traveled a lot over the years, as a school teacher. I would go every summer to Europe, or I would take the kids. I often took the kids on I took them on adventures to China and to Italy and did these summer things. And I had moved to Paris when I was 18. So I really learned photography then. And it was kind of this combination of learning business foundations, how to go out on my business on my own. I didn't just one day walk out the door and was like, I'm starting this thing. I had been building the groundwork for about 4 years before, because I shot my first wedding, I think, in 2007, and I left school teaching in 2013. Is that right? Yeah. So I laid the groundwork for a while before I got brave enough to, before I had enough knowledge. And yeah, after that, I think there's never the right time. You can always make an excuse that you should wait one more year. I was going to wait one more year. And then I just knew a couple of things happened at work that I just thought, I don't want a boss anymore. I really, the administration changed and we butted heads a lot. And I just thought, this is my sign. I have to get out of here. Like, I'm not happy working here. So that, I think, laying the groundwork is really important. I think being really open to dreaming bigger. I read this book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and it kind of taught me how to have bigger dreams. And I think a lot of us keep our dreams very small. And I remember going and watching Oprah recently, and she said it so well. She, when she moved into her first house, she wanted trees in the front yard because that was a sign of wealth. And she had like 7 trees in her front yard in her first house. And then she showed us a picture of her current, one of her current houses now. And she's like, guess how many trees are in the front yard? And, we were like 1,000. She actually hired a tree counter to come, and it was over 3,000 trees in her front yard alone. And she showed us a picture of her house, and she just used that to say, most of us dream too small. Your life's plan can be a lot bigger than you're allowing it to be. And I don't think everybody's life plan needs a big mansion with 3,000 trees in front of it by any means. But I do think a lot of us play really small, and we don't get around people who play bigger. And that's another thing I did, is I went to a lot of conferences where millionaires were present. So I could just see how millionaires were thinking about their business. Like, I was not a millionaire by any means. I put the conference on a credit card, but I went in there, and the first lady I sat next to, I really underestimated her. She looked like this little old grandma. And I thought, well, what is she doing here? And they had you stand up in order of like your income. Like, if you made over 5 million, keep standing. Like, they started with 5 million. So I just sat down the whole time. And she kept standing. If you made over 10, over 20, over 30, and she was still standing, and she sat down after 50. And I said, how much did you make? And she's like, oh, our business made 46 million last year. I just thought, oh my gosh, teach me. What are these women-owned businesses doing
What
that are
did she
bringing in
do?
profit and revenue?
I have to ask, what did she do?
She ran a construction company, which
Oh
I
my
thought was the most,
gosh.
she inherited it. She inherited it from her father. He didn't have any sons interested. And she decided, and she was older. So my guess is she had to be doing construction since the 70s. And I just thought, I have never seen a female owned construction business. And it was really inspiring. And
I
she was
love it.
just completely badass. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting, because right now in midlife, we're sort of in that position where millennials are coming up and they want to get promoted, and then there's boomers who don't want to leave, and we're kind of being sandwiched. So in a corporate job, some people might be feeling a little nervous about where their position is, you know, on if they're going to have a job. And with what's going on with our economy, a lot of people are losing their jobs. So we're sort of in this position of, what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on talking to us about that?
Yeah, I would say learn the skills. Learn the skills the millennials have. Your brain can still do that, midlife. Like, I don't even know, that Tina Fey completely redefined it, like women are redefining this. J-Lo, holy crap. Like, she's 50 and I think she is one of the most powerful women in the world. Oprah, again, I guess I'm just going to talk about Oprah a lot, but I did fly to Atlanta before all of this started to see her and Dwayne The Rock Johnson in the same room, because both of them are my heroes and I just wanted to be in the same room with them at one time. And she was saying life didn't even begin for her until 40, and 50 is where it got really good. That's Oprah. So, I think that my biggest suggestion would be to learn the skills the millennials are learning. Don't think like, I remember I didn't get on Instagram for a while because I was older and I was like, I'm not going to be on my phone. Like I was a literary, I'm a reader. I'm not going to be attached to this device. And so I really didn't get on it for 2 years. And all my friends who did built their following so quickly because that was the time to build it on Instagram. So they have like over 100,000 followers, 200, a half a million, a million. And I have a good following that I've built. I've built almost 35,000 followers. But had I gotten on 2 years before and not been stubborn, it would have had a much further reach. And so that was the last time that I said, I'm not going to learn an app or something on my phone, because that is where it's moving. And if it wants, if the world wants to leave me behind in the dust, it will. And we can all have our high and mighty things like, I don't use a phone, or I'm not going to figure this out. I mean, my mother, God bless her soul, she's 73 and she does not have an email address. My mother just never grew up needing, she's just like, why would I do that? She just barely learned to text. And every text she ends with love mom. Like she doesn't enter numbers in her phone. So she thinks that I need to know who it is every time. It's just hilarious. But that would be my biggest thing. Learn how to do Facebook ads. Learn how to blog. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, learn the skills that support the entrepreneurs, because especially with what's happening now in the world, entrepreneurs are going to be the main businesses. I think retail businesses are going to go away. I think more online shopping is going to happen. I think that, anything, office buildings are going to go away. Jobs are going to be done remotely. So learn the skills that you need to either be the entrepreneur or support the entrepreneur.
Oh,
I
I
have 3
love
people
that.
on my team that help me with social media, copywriting, and like, not secretary skills, because that's, we call them virtual assistants now, but she does so much more than that. She's a graphic designer. She helps me create, I create all the content and she helps me put, package it up so it looks really pretty and well designed.
Which I have to say, your content looks amazing. It is just beautiful.
Well, you can't teach branding unless you have a really solid brand. That's what I would think. So I have a very high standard for what I put out in the world, for sure.
Oh, yes. And I love it. I follow everything you have. But, one thing, speaking of which, you have a course called the Money Map. And I love that because people have such a difficult time talking about money or thinking about money. So, can you talk to us a little bit more about that and how people can overcome their issues with money?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's like a 2-hour conversation to overcome your issues with money. I would say the first thing would be aware that money is a relationship. I kind of think the 2 most important relationships in your life would be, one, all your family, like your partner, your children, that, and then money, because money really does dictate so much of our life. And if you're constantly feeling like there's not enough, that there's never anything there, that money doesn't grow on trees, that you have to be super frugal, that you have to hoard, that you have to do all of these things, I would just present to you that there is a different way of thinking about money. And that's not to say that, sometimes when you start to talk about this, people think, oh, she's super materialistic, or, oh, she really, she's just after money, and they downplay that. And they think that that's like not as spiritual or evil. And what I would say is money right now in our society, at least, is power. It is having a voice. It is helping to solve problems. Bill Gates, one of the wealthiest men in the world, is the one completely, with the money that he has made, he is completely eradicating malaria. Now, in the first world, we don't really think of that as being a very
Mhm.
big deal, but it is a huge freaking deal. And I've traveled the world enough to know that when you can end complete diseases, Matt Damon, he has started this water foundation for clean water. There's so much outside of where we're living right now in America. And for me, while I live quite simply and I splurge on a couple of things, I want to to have the best relationship with money so that I can do the best good with it, so I can make the biggest difference in the world, so I can connect and live my dream life. I like traveling first class. I'll tell you what, once I decided to start doing that 2 years ago, it's very hard to go back, and it's my splurge. And I think that it's okay to allow ourselves to enjoy life. I was able to take my family on a trip to Italy. My dad hadn't left America since he was in the military, in the Navy in Vietnam War. And his grandfather is from Italy. And I just thought, I want to get us all back to our roots. And, that was like a $20,000 adventure to get them all over there. And I was able to do that because of my good relationship with money, because I finally told myself I was a numbers person, because I charge what I'm worth and I work hard to be the best in the industry. And yeah, there's so much more about how to remove your money blocks. I have a free 7-day money mindset makeover, and each day you get a little video, an audio that you can listen to that just starts with very simple action steps you can do right now to feel more abundant, no matter how much money is in your bank account.
That's amazing. Well, you mentioned travel, that you've been traveling, and one of the places I heard that you were at was Switzerland, that you lived in
Yeah, I
Switzerland
used to
for a
live in
little while.
Switzerland. Hmm.
And you worked at a clinic for girls who had eating disorders, which is wonderful. That's so amazing you did that. Can you tell us, now that we're in midlife, it's a little easier to gain weight, and there are a lot of us out there, me included, who have body image issues. And I've kind of brought them my whole life. So while you were at this clinic, I imagine you learned a few things about dealing with body issues. And I know it sounds funny that you would be saying something to us in midlife about body image that you learned with girls back, teenagers, but I think it's very relevant for us as well. And now that we're heading into our second half, I would hope that we would be able to conquer this sort of thing, or maybe not conquer it, but just accept ourselves a little bit more. Do you have any
Oh,
thoughts on
I would
that
say
for us?
conquer.
Conquer, yeah, right?
Let's conquer it. My gosh, life is too short.
It
Life is too
is.
short. And men love your butt and your boobs. They just do. Can I say that on
Yes,
here?
you
Like,
can.
men do not care. Your partner does not care. He does not see it. He just wants to squeeze you and love you and have luscious sex with you. And so it's really ourselves that hold us back. I'm a very curvy girl. I'm a very tall girl. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a size 22. So I'm curvy and have been most of my life. I had an eating disorder when I was a teenager that made me miserable. My hair was falling out. I was getting cavities from throwing up, from bulimia, from all of these things. And I just didn't want to live that way. But most of us have. So when I was at the clinic in Switzerland, the reason she had like 100% success rate, and this is with like the severest of the most severe, like girls would come to us and they weren't teenagers. We had a girl in, almost 30. She would come to us and 5'8" and 67 pounds, right? Like
Wow.
that's severe on the brink of death from anorexia. So we dealt with the most severe. What happens in America is they put girls in a clinic for 2 months and force feed them so that they regain the weight, but they don't deal with the mentality. So what she learned and what I learned from working at the clinic is that we all have what she called a negative mind. We have a negative self-talk, but what happens with eating disorders is the negative part becomes conditioned and it becomes louder than the real positive part of us, and you can lose yourself in that. So you have negative talk if you walk by a mirror and you catch a glance of yourself and you immediately put yourself down like, oh my gosh, is that what I look like? If you won't let your husband touch your stomach, or you make sure you like have the lights off, or you don't even date or have a partner because you don't think you're worth it and you think all these skinnier girls are going to take place. Or you can be skinny and still like think I'm too skinny. There's just every angle of it. How the girls would get cured is it was a 2-year minimum. And that was because we actually had to rewire the brain, and we had to rewire the neural pathways. So I'm getting a little scientific, but we can change our thoughts. We can change who we are. If you guys have not heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Break the Habit of Being You. It's such an amazing book. And it really talks about how you can change and rewire your brain. So for the first 6 months at least, each patient would have at least one, if not two, workers with her. And we were constantly retelling her how to think about things healthy, because we would go grocery shopping, and kid you not, they had to do their own grocery shopping. We had meal plans for them, but they had to get the food and have a connection with the food. And one day I remember a girl that I was working with, she had 2 kinds of yogurt in her hand. One was fat-free and one was full fat. Now, she weighed 67 pounds, so we needed her to have the full fat yogurt. But she sat there, and her brain, you could see the struggle, like, you don't deserve this, you're fat, this is a trap, why are you eating this? You're not worthy of eating this. And I would have to come in and coax her gently about why your body deserves this. Your brain deserves it. You're so talented. You're so smart. We get to nourish you. Nourish was a big part of that. Healthy fat is actually, I would never say that because they don't want to hear the word fat. So there were a lot of things I could say and couldn't say, but basically I spoke a language. And the lady that I work for wrote a book called The Secret Language of Eating Disorders. And I think if any of you have, they were for ultimately very severe eating disorders, but anybody could read that book and see themselves in it and see how she would recondition the mind to self-love. So the answer to all eating issues, body issues, is self-love. That's the short answer. And it's not easy, but it is our responsibility. And I think it's the responsibility for the world, because I think if women stop thinking about their own bodies and their own issues so much, we would find a cure for human trafficking. We would have more women in politics. We would have more women CEOs. But women hold themselves back. And your audience might hold themselves back just by thinking their age is an issue or a factor. And it's not. I'm in a very young industry. I'm 42, and I'm in a young person's industry, but I never even bring up my age. And everybody's always surprised what my age is. I don't talk about it that much. And when I do, I'm not ashamed of it at all. I'll tell people, I'm like, I look good for 42. Like, I wore my sunscreen. I put my hat on. I'm fair. So I was careful about sun exposure, but that's the answer, is self-love. And it's your responsibility, because you affect every single woman you come in contact with. And if you're sitting and having conversations with women, I remember being at some event and I got somehow rounded up with some women who were just like, oh, but I really just want to lose 5 pounds, and oh, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of here? Because my friends and I talk about big dreams. We talk about what we're putting out into the world. We talk about our passions. We talk about our creation. I cannot remember the last time I sat around and complained about, just sat there and was like, oh, I just wish he thought I don't know. It's just not in my vocabulary, but I am very aware of my health, and I'm very gentle with myself, and I make sure that I'm doing those things that are healthy for sure. And yeah, it's an ongoing, our bodies are our most important relationship. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
they're our vessel. That's how we do anything that we're going to do. We have to have healthy bodies. And I think now that we're entering into our second half, this is a great time to conquer it. But like you said, it's going to take time. It's not a light switch, it's definitely something that we can start working on. and growing.
But it can be a light switch each morning. It can be a decision every morning. You can fast track this. The girls who took 2 years, it's because it was so conditioned that they had allowed themselves to get, to not eat anything. Most of us are not at that level. So a good month or two of really learning can put you on the journey. It is a journey, but you can start it every day. That's why I think starting your day really intentionally makes a big difference with what you eat that day. We also have to learn to reparent ourselves. Most of us overeat because we weren't cared for a lot as kids, and it's our coping mechanism and stuff like that. So yeah.
No, but it's definitely doable, which is so great. So
Yeah.
I do want to steer us back to your profession of photography. We all want to know, I think this is probably going to be the most important question. We all want to know how to take a good photo.
Hire a really good photographer. That's what I would say. I can make anybody look like the best version of themselves. One, it's all about angle. So I'm 6 feet tall, which is why a lot of my photos are really good because I get a higher angle. So we all know the selfie angle. It's about angle. It's about choosing the clothing that really expresses your body. It's about body love. It's about loving yourself so that when you look at a photo, you don't just hate it. That's the worst. Like, just I look at photos now the way I looked at myself in photos at 20, where I was totally like skinny, perfect, young, vibrant. And I just hated, I was like, oh, I'm too tall. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I need to lose another 10 pounds. Like, I just didn't get in a lot of photos, which I'm kind of sad about because I've really been making up for it the last 2 years and getting tons of photo shoots that I've never had done before, which has been really fun. But yeah, I think self-love, the angle, getting a good photographer, making sure you know what brand, if you're doing it for work, making sure you know what brand it is. If you're not doing it for work, just get your kids in it, get you in it, get your loved ones, and just get photographed with the people you love and just get over yourself. So many people delay getting beautiful photos taken because they think I'll just lose weight next year. And I think that's the biggest mistake because as we're seeing, especially now, life is so precious and delicate and your kids want memories with you. Even if you don't have kids, if you don't have a husband, I've gotten photo shoots for myself. One of the things I wish I would have done in my 20s was get a boudoir session, but I'm like, you know what? F it, I'll get one at 40. It's just time for me to document and love my body. And I'm a big advocate of people um, getting photographed at least once a year, by somebody who knows what they're doing. Having all your images of yourself just on iPhone quality is getting better and better, but it's just not the same. I still shoot on film, so I love the film look. If anybody wants to go look at my Instagram, you'll see lots of photos of myself, not in a vanity way, but in a way to say like, hey, I am not an Instagram influencer, Barbie doll, Kardashian woman, but I still deserve to have some beautiful photos of myself that I love.
Right. That's amazing. So, just to wrap up, I asked two questions, and you might have actually already answered it. First one is, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Mm. Don't live the life your parents want you to live.
Ooh,
I grew up in a very religious household, and in the religion, like most Christian religions, get married, have kids. And I tried to fit into that mold for a really long time. And I just feel like I kind of lost my 20s. I'm more of a wild, free person. So I didn't allow myself to be that person till I was 30. And I just really wish in my 20s I had done the things I wanted to do instead of trying to please my whole my parents, my community, who I thought I was supposed to be. And to realize that I was just this wild hippie woman who didn't want organized religion and who wanted to just go to Paris and make out with guys and do just live that life. I mean, I've made up for a good time, but that's what I would say is just don't live don't live your life to please other people when you have a different calling within you.
that is great. And if right now someone is having a difficult time getting started, starting something new, what would you suggest for them to do?
You have to tap into your passion. So you need to sit with yourself. Women sometimes want to go do a checklist or feel like they're being productive or that they just want to jump into something. And I think tapping into who you really are and tapping into that passion and realizing that you can make that passion into income. You can make that passion into something. You might not even, you might be, you might have a sugar daddy and you don't need to do this, but you could still have a passion that brings forth that energy into the world. That's when people are living their best lives, is when they are really tapping into the passion. So if you're feeling kind of stuck and unmotivated, I would suggest that you start reading books about people who are living magical lives and getting inspired. Inspiration is the first gateway into filling our passion. So read that book, The Magic of Thinking Big, everybody. It's awesome.
Oh, I love that. And how can people get in contact with you?
I'm mostly over on Instagram since I'm a photographer and brand person. So I'm at Darcy Benincosa, which I know is a very long Italian name, but you will probably have
I'll
it
have a
linked
link.
in the
Yes.
notes. Yeah, or
Yes.
I'm darcybenincosa.com, where I have all the money freebies and all the other resources if you want to learn some more about marketing, branding, money, and living your passion.
Oh, this has been amazing, Darcy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we're helping people live an abundant second half. And I think you have done an amazing job in giving us great advice.
Thank you.